Welcome back to another episode. Again, fellow Patriots, we are here with our good friend Osiris from Middle Maga, or Stuck in the Middle. What's going on, Osiris? How are you?
I'm feeling good. It's always good to be on with you. What's good, Carlos?
Man, 2 episodes in a row with you. I feel blessed, man, to be honest with you.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me, man. It's always good.
Yeah, man. Hey, so listen, I wanted to talk to you about something that's a hot topic, right? And it's our topic is really like it's a self-inflicted wound. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory. You're a football guy. I'm a football guy, right? I don't know. I don't know what team you are. You're for, but I'm a big Giants fan. And I remember in 2012, we had a star wide receiver named Plexico Burress that helped us in the Super Bowl in 2011. He was a great player, came over from the Steelers. Was doing a phenomenal job in New York. Again, helped us to win the Super Bowl. And it looked like in the 2012 season, we were on the road to having a second peat, meaning we had a good potential to going back to the Super Bowl. What happens, unfortunately, this guy ends up going to an event, a party, a nightclub, something like that, and he takes with him an unregistered handgun. But here's the kicker. Instead of having it in a holster, he just has it on his sweatpants. You know, sweatpants have that little waistband. And so what happens is at some point, I guess it slips through, accidentally ends up shooting himself in the foot, costs himself his season career. Not only did he cost the Giants their season, but he cost himself his career. That unregistered gun, be it that New York has some very strict gun laws, he actually ended up serving, I think it was 2 to 3 years of prison time. So he literally shot himself in the foot. Why am I telling you guys this story? Because it seems like this current administration is shooting themselves in the foot on multiple levels, but specifically when it comes to illegal immigration. What are your thoughts on that, Osiris?
Well, I think it's a great analogy. I'm a Browns fan. I went, Plaxico went to Michigan State, I believe. I was in Ann Arbor at the time. I remember him. He was a hell of a college player. But, I always go back and forth. Are we seeing an administration and political leaders who are like Plaxico Burress with a gun in his sweatpants? Or are we seeing people who are systematically trying to usher in a new era and do something, I don't know what it is, to take down the country? I don't know. The easiest explanation is probably incompetence. And it makes me wonder, are we shooting ourselves in the foot, like the American people, for allowing this? Even if you don't like Republicans or Democrats, whatever, you still don't have to tolerate this. You can pick a different Democrat if you like Democrats. Like, why would you tolerate this? So there's a lot of angles on this, man. I think we're all like Plaxico, shooting ourselves.
Well, I think it's a fascinating question that you bring up. Is it that we're shooting ourselves in the foot, or is it part of some other type of sinister scheme where it's being done on purpose? And I really do think that it's being done on purpose, and we can see that in our first video I'd like to share with you. Why? Because he said he was going to do this on his campaign trail, so it shouldn't surprise us. So let's get into our first video here.
The Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you is, if an individual is living in the United States of America without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
No. Depending if they committed a major crime, they should be deported. And the president was left in his... President Obama, I think, did a heck of a job. To compare him to what this guy's doing is absolutely, I find, close to immoral. But the fact is that, look, we should not be locking people up. We should be making sure we change the circumstance, as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to absorb them, keep them safe until they can be heard.
A 15-second, if you could, if you wish to answer. Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with things.
Senator.
So there you have it. So the answer is no. We shouldn't deport people who come here illegally. What are your thoughts about what he just finished saying?
He used weasel words. He said, that shouldn't be our focus. Why? You use the weasel words because that's evidence to me that you're right, Carlos, that there is some intent here. Why would you use those weasel words? Like, why wouldn't you just say, no, we should bring them in, and say, no, they shouldn't be the focus. He kind of weaseled out of it. And I think they do a great job of tugging on people's heartstrings. Our weakness, America's greatest weakness, is the greatness and kindness of this country. People are so kind and they want to, and that's great. Your average American would be like, no, of course we want to take people in because we want them to have opportunity. They might be running from, even if it's not technically asylum, they're running from some other place, and we want to take them in. Much of our country is founded by immigrants. My parents are immigrants. They're legal immigrants, but they're immigrants. But we can't let that kindness and that good-hearted American spirit be used as a weapon against us, and that's what's happening.
I totally agree. Here are the things that I picked out of it. So the person who was asking the question there asked them, about or mentioned that they deported the most amounts of illegal immigrants between Obama and when Biden, when he was a vice president, right? So he was talking about now hard criminals. You're gonna tell me all of the millions, and I don't know how many there are, but there were a lot, because if we're talking about the most, right? Are you gonna tell me they were all hard criminals back then? I seriously and sincerely doubt that. And I say that because now, obviously, this was back in 2020, trying to compare his administration to what Trump did back in 2016 throughout his administration. He's trying to make it seem like there's a huge difference. That guy's immoral. We weren't. No, I beg to differ, right? It has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with legality, right? It has to do with who's coming across legally and who is not. The other thing I picked up on is, and we're seeing it, change the system. He said, change the system so we can absorb these people. Well, they're doing that. What are they using? What's the key magic word that we keep hearing from the left regarding the justification of all of this illegal immigration? And that's asylum, right? They've made it so that every Hispanic or everybody that comes across the border is an asylum seeker. Well, that's not true. All those countries, except for Venezuela and Cuba, as far as the Latin countries go, are democracy. They're a democratically governed country. I can't help it if they got violence. Heck, we got violence here. Go to Chicago, go to LA, go to New York. Right? It's absolutely absurd. And you can hear it within what he said. Asylum seekers should not be turned away. So he's giving you the formula of what he's been doing, what this administration has been doing for the last 2 years. And then, of course, any illegal should not be turned away. Despite the fact that the border czar and Biden have said, they did a fluff piece where they said, no, you should not come to the border. Their policies contradict what they're saying, because they're being allowed in millions a day, right? And thousands, tens of thousands a day. And then we've got obviously millions throughout the last 2 years. So the Democrats are incentivizing illegal immigration. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, the signal is the actions are come on through. They can say whatever they want. There's nothing they can say that can outdo their actions. They got an app. I don't know if you've seen that app they got. You can pre-board. You can get logged on in before you even come across. There's I think he's in the house, James Lankford. If you go to Forbes on YouTube, he broke it down, like all the different avenues. You can go on the app, sign up, whatever, and you come in, you get expedited in the country. The hearings for asylum that he said that he saw the dates for were for 2036. So they get a hearing for 2036. So it reminds me of the election where you have so many ballots. It's hard to audit. How do you really audit when you've got so many ballots and they're not like stamped with the serial number? Same with people coming through. You got so many people. There's no hearing on their asylum till 2036? My goodness.
Listen, it's the same strategy that Obama did with DACA, right? He did an executive order, got DACA in. It was not supposed to be a permanent fix, and yet somehow it turned into a permanent thing, right? He's doing the exact same playbook. I mean, everything that Joe Biden is doing, when you look at, these big things like the Afghanistan retreat, it's the same thing that Obama did. He pulled out of Iraq. And he
Right.
left all of the military equipment there, and then ISIS got into power, and look at all the havoc they wreaked. It's really realistically the same playbook. But here's the interesting part. Back to what you finished saying, it's being done on purpose. Second video, let's go into this nice little piece where he also said it on the campaign trail.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
So surge the border. Let me get your thoughts. What did that mean to you? How did you interpret that?
I envision people, a mob of people like we are seeing videos of right now, envisioning them coming on through the walls and walking on into the country. And we are seeing that literally happen. What he just said, surging, I think that's the appropriate word. And so that means they didn't want just one or two people to come through. They said, all y'all come through.
Yep. Absolutely. Now you can interpret that and say, well, maybe he's talking about like we as Americans should go to the border and welcome this surge of migrants that are coming. I don't interpret that way. I interpret it the way that you did. It's like, hey, let's have a surge of all these illegals coming in and so on and so forth, where we can't control it and overwhelm the system and so on and so forth. So I picked it up the way that you did as well. So is there any surprise why we have all these immigrants flooding our nation at this point?
Yep, they talked about it. There should be no surprise at all. And I think it's well hidden. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how bad it is, believe it or not.
Yep. But we'll get into that. We'll get into showing how bad it is. Let's go into our third video. Now, here's the interesting part. And I tell people this all the time when I have these conversations with them. We are at a unique political moment in our country. Ever since, people are going to point back to Donald Trump because that's the easy one. That's where you can actually visually see it. But it started back before actual Trump. Because remember, only reason Trump got elected was because of the crappy job that Obama did prior. If Obama had done a good job during his presidential run, we probably wouldn't have had a Trump. But because he didn't, we had a Trump. So the divisiveness all started around Obama's second term specifically. And we can point that out because this particular video that I'm going to show you is going to show you how different the Democrats used to sound prior to Obama's second term.
This is just one more example of something that is not thought through and is primarily put forward for political consumption. The bill before us will certainly do some good. It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders. The fence is now basically complete. Maybe they'll need a moat. Maybe they want alligators in the moat.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary in some places.
We will not build a wall. Instead, we will build an economy where everyone who wants a good job can get one.
I voted for a fence. I voted, unlike most Democrats, and some of you won't like it, I voted for a 700-mile fence. And let me tell you something, folks. People are driving across that border with tons, hear me, tons of everything from byproducts from methamphetamine to cocaine to heroin. It's all coming up through corrupt Mexico.
And the impulse is to hunker down, shut the gates, build walls, exit at this moment is precisely the wrong answer.
Former presidents have said to him that they wish that they had built a wall. Do you recall President Obama ever saying that?
Come on.
Construction of a 630-mile border fence create a significant barrier to illegal immigration on our southern land border. All along, the president's saying, well, I'll do DACA and Dreamers in return for the wall. He's got it. President Trump, if you want to open the government, you must abandon the wall.
What are your thoughts?
So they do understand. So they do understand. So even if you disagree with some of the takes on immigration, clearly they know that there's legitimacy to the other take because they used to have the other take. There's also a clip of Bernie Sanders back in the day talking about it, like how, allowing people in the border suppresses wages for common workers. And it's a costly endeavor, and they know. So I think you've got more evidence more evidence that they know what they're talking about are bad ideas right now. They were talking about a fence before. Now all of a sudden a wall is bad.
Right, right. Which at the end of the day, it's a physical barrier, right? Because fences, I mean, a wall can be climbed over, sure, and a fence can be, you know, you can cut through it, or you can climb over it, however the case may be. But I think, you know, Hillary Clinton was right. You know, we need more boots on the ground, more technology. It was an array of different things, but there has to be something to deter them, and there really isn't, you know, from their flip-flopping. But here's the kicker, because I remember this when I was a teenager, before I got into politics, before I knew anything about politics, way before. This is really interesting, and I want you to pay really close attention to the end of the video, because that's really going to tell us a lot of how things have changed.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Sounds like MAGA.
Look at everybody that stood up. That's bipartisan right there.
Yep. Make America great again is what it sounds like. That version of Bill Clinton would have a MAGA hat on now if he had those takes.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it just goes to show the contrast of how far the Democratic Party has changed from those times, right? We're not talking about you know, how do we handle the immigration problem? That's not the conversation. The conversation is one side wants to protect it and have the laws enforced, and the other side just wants an open border. So it's a huge departure from where they were to where they're at now.
Yeah, that's not an organic shift. You know, I was very different politically years ago, even like 2-3 years ago. But you can kind of see the progression. I can articulate it. There's Bill Clinton and all of them, Obama. They can't articulate why their positions are fundamentally different now.
Correct.
That's why they have, that's why they use words like equity and all, you know, marginalized communities, black and brown, because they can't articulate based on the merit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they also disguise words. Notice how we were using illegal aliens all those times, and now we've gone to undocumented because, oh, it has less of a negative connotation and so on and so forth. Listen, if you break the law, it's illegal, right? They're breaking federal law by coming into this country, which again goes back to the changing of what they did. No, now they're asylum seekers. So now they're not illegals, right? Because if you're claiming asylum, you're really not technically breaking the law. You're asking for help. They are very, very deceptive and very manipulative in how they handle things.
Yep. It shows you how important language is. Like, it just changes the narrative from illegal alien to migrant or undocumented.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. Now, here's what's interesting. Throughout all of 2016, throughout 2019 or 2020, we kept hearing, leftist cities and leftist states saying, no, we're not going to deport our immigrants. We're not going to deport. We're going to take care of them. We're going to be a sanctuary city. Why? Because they wanted to paint Donald Trump as the racist, despite the fact that Donald Trump was saying very, very similar things like we just finished hearing from not just Bill Clinton, but from other prominent Democrats. Let's do a refresher on what these mayors and governors and liberal talking heads sounded like when it came to sanctuary cities.
Well, I can't say it any more clearly of what it means for for Washington, D.C. to be a sanctuary city.
We have your back in New York City. We will protect you. We will not ask your documentation status.
San Francisco stands behind our sanctuary city policy.
Los Angeles and other big cities have always been a place that are welcome to refugees, to asylum seekers, and to immigrants.
This is a city that for 150 years has been a city of welcome for immigrants from people all over the world.
So passionate. So as you can see, liberals spent years bragging about their cities being open for illegals. And now they're begging the federal government for aid and reinforcement. That's the same kind of help that the border towns, hell, the entire state of Texas have been asking for years. But when Republicans asked for help at the border, they were labeled as racist, xenophobic. They didn't send the cavalry for the Republicans. Now, this is just the latest example of Democrats ignoring the issue until it finally lands in their own backyard.
So here's the funny part, hearing that, right? Notice, you just mentioned something about how important, languages and vocabulary, right? Notice how they were all talking immigrants, right? To paint the narrative of racism. No, you're racist against immigrants. Again, it's a false narrative. It's so deceptively well played by the Democrats. It has nothing to do with anybody's skin color, nationality. It has to do whether it's legal or illegal. If you are from, let's say, a European country and you are here illegally, like let's say Romania, you're more than likely going to be white. Guess what? You don't need to be here. You need to be deported, right? Because you're here illegally. So it makes no difference what any of that is. It's all a matter of whether you are legally supposed to be here or not.
Yeah, when I hear sanctuary city, I hear a breach of contract. We have a federal government that's basically an agreement between 50 states. Because when I look at and see what's happening in all these states, it's not something that makes me like, oh, it's just New York or it's just California. That's going to come up on my doorstep. It's going to come up in yours, all of ours at some point. And the agreement is the federal government has the laws. We have laws. We already have laws regarding immigration, and they have just declared that's all sanctuary city is. We've declared ourselves to not abide by the agreement that we all signed, basically, to be a federal government union of 50 states. And to me, that breaks the grounds of everything. How is that even constitutional right now?
No, yeah, it's a good point. And here's the kicker is that, again, this was just to defy Donald Trump. But now that the reality of illegal immigration is at their doorstep, they're singing a completely different tune now. You got cities like Chicago, LA, DC, New York City, right? They're coming out saying, we need help. There's too many of them. And just like, I think it was like 2 Fridays ago, or I think it was the Friday before, the new mayor from New York City, Eric Adams, was on video talking about how, New York City was going to be destroyed. Let's check that out. Well, first I want to play his. Actually, I want to play his video on sanctuary cities. I want to get his opinion and views on sanctuary cities first.
You pledged during your campaign to keep New York City a sanctuary city. Do you have any concern that policy is attracting more people to the border, more people to cross the border to make that dangerous trip?
No, not at all. This city has always been a sanctuary city, and we've always managed those who wanted to come to New York City to pursue the American dream.
So it's pretty easy to be a sanctuary city when you're not on the border and you're not dealing with literally thousands of immigrants, illegal immigrants every single day. Of course, it's easy to be a sanctuary city, right?
Yeah, you're not on the border, so now you're trying to make the people who really have to deal with it look bad by saying, oh, we're the good guys. We're the warm-hearted ones. You can come for the American dream, and then now look at it.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the difference now.
In 20 months. And then what happened? Started with a madman down in Texas, decided he wanted to bus people up to New York City. 110,000 migrants. We have to feed, clothe, house, educate the children, wash their laundry sheets, give them everything they need, health care. And this team here, we stated, let's do everything possible before we have to push it out into neighborhoods and communities. Month after month, I stood up and I said, this is going to come to a neighborhood near you. Well, we're here. We're here. We're getting no support on this national crisis, and we're receiving no support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you ask me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. And I'm telling you now with 110,000, the city we knew we're about to lose.
Wow. This is, but you know what? For them to really, he was basically on his knees begging the federal government. And this is like, you said, what does it look like when it's a surge? I mean, I almost envision you couldn't bring soldiers from another country to really invade the United States, probably because of 2A. A lot of people, really enjoy that right. And that's a good thing. But what if you did it with immigrants? What if you flooded, however that works, you paid off politicians that would take this position, and maybe you help the cartels? What if enemies across the world are doing their part in trying to flood this country through to the point where we can't house, feed, clean, and even maintain a city?
Well, that's been the right's concern for quite some time, specifically, again, during the Obama years, where we were taking in all these Syrian Muslim refugees. We weren't taking any Christians. We were actually rejecting the Christian ones. We were only taking the Muslim ones. And there were a lot of people that were up in arms because of that. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so now you've just, again, to your point, we're being flooded with a bunch of different people that don't have our values, don't want to assimilate, right? And are doing it, and then they're changing policies and terms and stuff like that to allow this to happen. And it's just utterly wrong. Now, here's what I do want to say. What do you think about the choice of words that he used, that this will destroy the city? They're lacking resources, and it's a national crisis. What did you think about that?
Well, I think he just wants more. He wants the federal government to have more power to pass legislation. I think they already got legislation. These sanctuary cities already got money from the federal government. And I think he wants money for New York and not for anywhere else in the country, specifically because we were the good guys. We did the right things, and he wants to get taken care of financially. It's what it sounds like to me.
Yep. Notice that he blamed Governor Abbott for busing them over there, as opposed to blaming Biden for having the border wide open. I mean, he is critical. I'm not going to say that he's not critical, because there's a lot of videos I've seen of him criticizing Biden and the federal government, but he does it so softly. He doesn't go after obviously Biden the way that he has Trump, or the way he does Governor Abbott or DeSantis. Remember when DeSantis sent up the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, right? Very different tone throughout his criticisms. But here he's still missing the point. He's still doing the blame game.
Yep, and how can you blame Abbott for this? I mean, that's absurd. They're right. I mean, parts of the southern part, obviously, of Texas, right up on the border, and they got to deal with this full blown. And legally, so here's the thing. They declared themselves sanctuary city. So that means they don't have to abide by the law. Texas is allowing the federal government to run the border. So Texas could send their state troopers in or whatever. The governor could say, New York's not abiding by the Constitution. I'm not either, or the national federal law. I'm not either. And I think that's what happened with Kari Lake in Arizona. They didn't want to see that, because I think Kari Lake would have been like, I don't care about the federal government. Just like you're a sanctuary city or state, I'm running up in here with my people and we're going to get them the hell up out of here. I think that's the real issue, is they're abiding by the law in Texas and they're not in other areas.
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, Texas has tried to defy them on several occasions. We did it on one of our episodes, Border Crisis, where we showed video of the feds coming in and opening the gates. So Border Patrol, if I'm not mistaken, if it was Border Patrol or it might have been the National Guard for Texas, they had the gate, one of the gates, it was closed, it was locked, and then the feds came in and forced those people, they overrided them, forced them to open the gates and allow migrants to come in. They've had, I don't know what state it was, that put up like freighter tanks and built like a wall. The federal government came in and sued them and made them take it down or threaten them with lawsuit. Abbott had some flotation barrier on the Rio Grande, if I'm not mistaken, to prevent the migrants from swimming over. Federal government came in, threatened to sue them, and so on and so forth. So at every single step, the federal government is helping the illegal immigrants cross over.
So you've got those areas, those sanctuary cities, teaming up with the federal government to, in my opinion, attack states like Texas. That's what's happening. Like, why is the federal government does not need to be in lockstep with the same ideology or philosophy on this as New York.
Well, and that goes to the brilliance of Abbott by doing this, because he was the one who started this to show them, because it's like, yeah, you could be a sanctuary city, you're not on the border, you're not going to get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegals coming to you, using up your resources and all that other stuff, right? Now that he's done that, now it brings attention to a national level. Now these guys are crying help. Keep in mind also, reports were coming out that Biden was flying these illegal immigrants to red states. I wonder why. Why? So this move that Abbott did, this political chess move, was brilliant in my opinion.
Yep, it worked out. It really drew attention to it. Without that move, it really would be even more undercover than it is now. So that was good. It doesn't solve the problem. I think what it does, though, is it brings great attention to it in a good way. Got Eric Adams talking about it, and you see it kind of break through even on Fox News a little bit.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, no, remember, the administration did not want to call it a border crisis. At the beginning, there was like, there is no border crisis. No, they've said it plenty of times. The border's closed. The border's closed. Right now, with everything that's going on, now they have to. That's the brilliance of Abbott's move, is now they have to acknowledge the border's not closed, and this is a problem. And the problems that you guys are having is the problems that we've been dealing with for years. So it's absolutely brilliant.